Hi, Kevin here. I wanted to make a little video demonstrating how to put together this HOn3 hopper car I designed and had printed on through Shapeways. This car is actually based upon a Jackwork article from 1958, October 1958, model railroader. Um, it has assembly instructions and some plans for the car. It's a wood hopper car, and I don't know exactly what the prototype is, but actually, this was an old model rotor I found somewhere, probably in a trash bin or something like that, or for free at a train show. And one of the few things I had on hand when I moved into a new apartment, and I just had a few modeling tools, and I wanted to build something, so I found a sheet of where it was basically poster board and some strip wood and probably some white glue and some bits of wire and stuff. And I built actually 5 of these cars out of cardboard and strip wood, and they came out pretty well. Just a little time consuming, but I figured if I wanted more rather than spend the time, it might be a fun project for 3D printing. So I drew it up on Shapeways, and I had it printed up in frosted ultra detail, which actually it came out really well. Just a few areas that didn't come out perfect, but you can see the detail of the lines of the boards, and you can see the little you can see down here. You can see I added some of these little stake pockets, and they came out really well. And there's this area here. This is like a little discoloration from the supportive wax that the printing process uses. But I've got cast on bolsters. This is all one piece, by the way, so it prints up as one piece, so no real assembly. All you just need to do is add details to it. But anyway, the other cool thing is I printed in actually the holes for some of the details. So for example, you can see the end of the car here. There's 3 holes, or 3 areas where there's a tie rod that's got to go across, and you can see you don't even have to drill it out. It printed out well. And then for the brake staff here, there's holes, and it just slides right in. So hopefully not too much drilling will be required on this. So yeah, I was really impressed. This is the frosted ultra detail plastic. A little pricey, but tried to save some money on it by printing it as one piece, as opposed to multiple pieces. But all in all, I think it was like $25 or something like this to have it printed up. But that's not too bad. Obviously, you might want a fleet of them, so it could add up. But this is actually, if you haven't worked with this material before, it's a lot like a resin casting. It's a little brittle. So structural things need to be supported. Little detail parts can break off easily, so that sort of limits to how you can design something. So little things that stick out and protrude, they might be suspect to breakage. And some of the details, I added a few nut bolt washers. You can't even see them because it's the translucent nature, but just right in here there's some nut bolt washer castings. But anyway, so to assemble this, you're going to need some brass wire. This I think is K&S. It's like 0.016 or something. It's the smallest they make. It looks like it's kind of hard to find. You could use 0.020, but you might have to make the holes a little bit bigger. So you would need some micro drills for that, or you could use like steel music wire. The brass is a little bit better because it's easier to cut. And speaking of cutting, the other thing you might need or will need is some flush cutting pliers. These I think are from Harbor Freight, so didn't spend a whole lot of money on them. They're kind of disposable. I think I've gone through like a couple of pairs of them already, and you pay like $2.99 or something for them. You're gonna need some super glue. I usually just pick up these tubes from like the dollar store or someplace. As far as I'm concerned, it works just as good as the more expensive stuff from the hobby store. Other typical tools you need: tweezers and your hobby knife. What else do we got? You're gonna need some weight. These are also from Harbor Freight. You buy a big package of them for a couple of bucks. These are tire weights. Really come in handy. A car like this, because it's an open car. If you're not going to put a load, if you're going to keep it empty, you might want to use something different for weight, but it definitely needs weight. So if you're keeping it as an open car, I would suggest probably using like sheet lead and making basically tracing the outline of that slope sheet and making sheet lead that kind of laminates over the inside surface of it. All hopper cars are difficult to weight, but I think I'm just going to use these and make it put a load in there of some kind. Other thing you might need is a micro drill. For whatever reason, I like to use these for the small drills. Use like old X-Acto handles as pin vices. I don't know why. I mean, there's better pin vices out there, but I've always used those for the smallest drills, maybe because I like the long handle or something. And you're going to need a couple of, actually 4 of these stirrup steps. You can buy commercially made ones out of plastic. I actually bent these out of some heavy duty Staples, actually Staples brand heavy duty Staples. So I kind of like using wire ones and bending my own because they're a lot stronger than the plastic ones. You're going to also need some couplers, HOn3 couplers, the 714s. I've experimented with some of the other scale head whisker couplers. They work fine too, in HOn3, but the other cars I've made had used the 714, so I figured I'd just use the same thing because I got a bunch of them. You're going to need a set of trucks. These are micro trains, arch bar trucks. The other cars, I think I used Grant Line trucks. So whatever truck of your choice is. You also need a brake wheel, and you're going to need a length of this micro chain for the winding mechanism. So you can see in the car here, the article, there's this chain for the winding mechanism. The micro chain is obviously a little coarse scale for HO scale, but if you wanted to be closer, something closer to scale, you might get away with just using thread. But this micro chain, I probably bought this at the hobby store. You might find jewelry chain for a cheap piece of jewelry at, again, like a dollar store, or a jewelry craft section at Michael's if you can't find any at a hobby store. So those are basically the tools that you would need to put this thing together. Maybe a few other things: files, sandpaper, that sort of thing, some paint. But in the next video, I'll show you, I'll start putting it together, and hopefully it won't take us too long.